Hello, everyone. Hi, Isabel. I'm so happy that you are here. We are, both of us, sending all of you joining us loads of not sick vibes, COVID friendly vibes away from our screens. Bear with us. For those of you who have never come to one of those series, welcome to the Lunch and Learn series. The whole objective here is to address any questions you might have, and today's topic is all about networking. So, for those of you who haven't had a chance to meet me, my name is Anaïs. I'm a career coach, and my passion is to help women to build a career they're happy with. On that note, I am joined by the lovely Isabel, who is fighting COVID to be with us today. Hi, Isabel. It's lovely to have you.
Thank you for having me and my COVID face here to talk to you.
Definitively, we can also tackle the topic around networking, like showing up when you don't feel like it. But I really love the post that you did earlier this week, which was, you know what? Sometimes it's also good to just rest, recharge. And even though it's painful to cancel things, sometimes it's what needs to happen. But you're here
Yeah.
today. So thank you so much for that.
Yes. No, no, no. Yeah, I'm feeling better today, and yeah, it's definitely a struggle as a self-employed entrepreneur, whatever you want to call yourself, to say that you are sick because you feel like there's no one else to do the stuff that you can do. But you know, we'll get there.
We are. Yeah. I mean, to be honest, if I were looking like you when I had COVID, I will feel amazing. You look great. I mean, just so you know, you look great. So well done.
Thank you.
So we're gonna get into the nitty gritty. I'm just staring at you on the other side of the screen to make sure you make the most out of this time together, because 30 minutes goes like this. I've got three things that I want to share with you. First, grab your lunch, your drink, whatever it is that you need. I'm French, so I know all about the importance of food and just not skipping lunch. That's the one thing. The second thing is for you to grab any pens or paper or whatever is it on your laptop that you want to take notes on, because I know Isabel is going to share priceless things around networking, so we want to make sure you're not missing on any of that. And then final thing, make sure that you ask any questions as we talking. There might be a slight lag because we're live, but we'll make sure that we pick up your questions and we answer any of those. So without further ado, Isabel, would you be able to share a little bit more about yourself?
Yes, of course. Yeah, my name is Isabel. I am originally from Brazil and I've moved to London in 2014. And I've always worked in the so called creative industries. So it's been 18 years and going.
Wow.
It's been a while. It's the only industry I know. So, whatever advice I'm going to give you here, just remember that that's my background. So I had a company back in Brazil working with a talent agency and production company. We did over 50 events a year, mostly across music, theater, and live arts. And then in 2020, I was still working in live music, which was surprisingly not a good time to be working in live music. So I lost
No.
my freelance contract. Everyone lost their jobs. It was horrible. And I tell people that I did a lot of Netflix and crying because I was not chilling at all
Hmm.
in 20. And I really felt like the creative community was struggling a lot. And I thought, well, there's got to be something I can do. And one thing that I had was people, rallying around me and sharing jobs and this, and we were all talking to each other. And I thought, wow, if I didn't have this community around me, like how hard would this period even be? And how would I have made it? And one person told me, how am I ever going to find a job now? It's impossible to network
Hmm.
anyway. I hate it, but you need to know people to get anything done in this industry. And I literally paid someone to help me network. So that created like a little bit of a
Hmm.
light switch. And
Yes.
I went home, I did a bunch of research on why that was, why so many people were saying those things to me. And I started this first like volunteer program, which was a mentoring and networking scheme to support women and non-binary people in their creative industries that really had networking embedded in it. And since then, we've launched 3 schemes. So we're on our way to support over 600 people in terms of mentoring,
It's
on
amazing.
group mentoring, and then yes, we have built a big online community, and we've launched this social enterprise called I Like Networking. Hence,
I
why
know.
talking about networking. So yeah, this is sort of what I've been doing.
Yes, I mean, I'm so happy that you're here, and what a journey, right? But for anyone who definitely is like, well, I just don't like networking, what would you say to that? I know a lot of people, especially my clients, they're really dreading the whole piece around networking. And I think it would be very interesting to unpack that with you. Like you said, you're running a company called I Like Networking. So how can we actually like networking when we don't like it, I guess is my question.
Yeah, so the first thing I say is that I think everyone is already networking, even if you don't think you are. So if you Google what a network is, like if you go to dictionary definitions, there's one that I really like where it says that a network is a informal group or association of people such as friends or colleagues. So if you ever called a bunch of friends to decide, like, oh my God, what should I do with this in this subject, or ask someone if they know someone to introduce you to whatever, even if it was not in a professional manner, that's already networking, right? Networking is nothing more than just this informal exchange of information or resources and introducing people to one another. We already do that. So I think there is a image of what networking should be, which is probably defined by what we see in films, but also in corporate environments where it's very much like people selling themselves. And how I tell people, it's like everyone is selling like encyclopedias, but everyone else is like already using Google. So we're like, why are you trying to sell me an encyclopedia, or in my case, someone trying to sell me a cat, and if I have a cat close to me, I will die because I'm very severely allergic. So it's like, maybe not. And I think there are totally different ways of doing it. I think we all do it in our own ways, and that's fine. So it's more demystify that. But there is a big gender gap already in that way of like how much women feel like they have a network to support them, especially in the professional realm, which obviously leads to, how the corporate worlds and professional worlds have been historically places for a particular group of people. And so the way that people network tends to be, in a particular style. But what I advocate for is that there are better ways of networking, and you already know how to do it. And it doesn't need to be a pitch and a sales and all of that. I actually don't think that that's the best way. That has never been my way. And I'd say I have a really great network to support me. So yeah, that's kind of the idea, to unpack what it even means and what it looks like. So yeah, if you have a friend and you've ever got everyone together to help you choose the best outfit for a date, you sort of did a format of networking. And so it shouldn't be harder than that, really.
I love that. And I think you're spot on, when it comes to finding the networking that works for you. Like you said, you probably are doing it anyway. The one thing for me, definitely, that I'm keen to discuss with you is that I'm calling it the networking from like the early 20s, which is, people coming into a room and just throwing business cards at one another and be like, yeah, that's it, I've done. This is my networking. Up, I'm home, and it's going to be amazing. And I think a lot of people, when they hear the word networking, have that picture in the mind of them being thrown business cards are at, sorry, and potentially having what I call a transactional relationship rather than a meaningful one, right? But I definitely want to pick your brain on any examples that you can share about sort of like what networking is looking like in 2022, because from personal experience, literally yesterday, it was not meant to be this way, but I actually attended a networking event by the Marketing Meetup, so led by Joe Glover, who is actually part of also the LinkedIn
Great.
Accelerator program, right? Yeah. And Joe's views is, first of all, his mission is to make sure that people are positively lovely into one another. So actually, you're coming to an event where people are just not going to sell things at you. So one tip of advice I would probably share with anyone listening in is that find the right networking that works for you. There is just not one way to do networking. You just have to find the right places, the right people, either because they already exist or you can create them yourself, like you did as well, Isabel, right?
Yes. Yeah, well, first of all, I think the idea of networking of people in suits in a conference, it's not really what most people experience these days. And also, it's not the only thing. This is, I think, the most important element. Basically, I am a big, obviously, proponent of online networking. I think in 2020, that was the only way to do it, because everyone was in a form of lockdown or isolation. But even before that, I already used to love using like, platforms to connect with people, especially things like LinkedIn, because in this platform, for instance, everyone is already agreeing that they want to be contacted by others for a professional thing. So it kind of breaks down the barrier of like, you already sort of know what the person does and you know what you do, and you can craft your sort of profile in a way that makes the best possible introduction for someone, even if you're not great at like public speaking or anything like that. So I think the first thing to consider whenever you're thinking about networking, and in this case, we're going to talk about it in more of like a professional way, is to consider who is it that you want to network with, right? Like, why do you want to network? Like, do you want to find a community to support you? Do you want to, exchange ideas? Do you want to follow thought leaders? Do you want to find clients? Like, what is the goal, right? And then have a little think about where this audience is. Like, where are they hanging? Are they going to book clubs, or are they going to webinars, or are they going to the museum association conference in whatever? Like have a think, and then you can start experimenting with platforms and communities that make sense to you. And the goal here, I think, is to experiment. So maybe if you're a lot of artists, for instance, hang on sort of Instagram because it's a visual platform, and then a lot of journalists used to be on Twitter. I have no idea if that will continue to be the case, but that's where they found their community. And then if you're a founder, there are like communities, like online communities for co-working or for founder support, and literally there's like a community for almost everything that you can find online. And I think that's the best way to start, because you find a community that already has like one element of connection, right? That you also have, like you share something in common, and that will make the starting point from a conversation easier, because you already all know why you're there. Whereas when you are in real life event, it can be a bit more daunting because you don't necessarily know if people are there. You have to start the whole talk. So yeah, I think when you start online is a good way to practice, because you can sort of be a bit more targeted in your approach, and you don't necessarily need to only do it in professional ways. It can be that you really just want to expand your network in general, and so you will join something like a book club or a running club or whatever, and then you start connecting with people in that way without so much pressure. And I think that is, practice makes perfect for almost everything in terms of soft skills in life. And I think when you're in real life sort of event, it's good to be approaching those places with curiosity. I always say, how would you approach that conversation if you were just interested about that person maybe being your friend? Like, what do you want to know? And we always connect with people. We don't connect with job roles. If I just sit here and tell you I'm a founder, or I'm an accountant or a lawyer, and you don't want to talk about any of my professions today, that's sort of like the end of the conversation, right? But like, what are the other things that define you? Like, what are other things you can bring to the conversation? And just like, I think letting go of that pressure that every conversation needs to become a connection or become a lead, because relationships take time to develop. And like, again, when you connect with the person, you're not connecting with a robot that works at something. So if you just approach it with curiosity and really wanting to know more about that person, two things happen. One is that if there is something that might be beneficial for both of you professionally, you'll be in a much better position to then write an email or a message and pitch and like schedule another conversation that will go more targeted towards that. But second, you will just learn a lot more from people. You will expand your worldview. And I think that's the most important part of networking, is to like learn from others and, just be inspired and have the chance to maybe someone saying something that will make you think differently about something else. And maybe just actually finding new friends. Like, I can't tell you how many people I met on networking professionally that really close friends, So I think that's just approaching, less like stressful, like target salesy way is always best.
I love that. You've mentioned so many priceless tips already. So just to recap on some of the things you shared. First of all, I love the be clear about your intention while you're doing networking, right? That's like step number one. If there is something you, as in you on the other side, need to take away from today, is really thinking about what's the reason behind that. And it could be like you've got multiple things that you want to cover, such as learning about a new topic, but also meeting new people. That's absolutely fine. But make sure you're clear on those intentions. And then for each of those intentions, how you're going to manage to make that happen. The other thing that I thought you said was spot on is when it comes to taking it step by step. So, for example, you can start online. I think that's perfect. Or if you feel like actually you're fed up with being behind your screen, if you're going for face to face, don't just go all hands on and just book like whatever 5 networking meetings in a couple of weeks, right? Just start with one, experiment, and then take it from there. The one thing I would say, and again, I'm keen to have your views on that, is that it's not like a switch that you can turn on and off. Like Isabelle, you said, you're already doing networking, whether you're realizing it or not.
Yeah.
And you just need to carry on that journey at your own pace in a way that works for you. I mean, especially you right now with COVID, me also being sick, we know all about like energy. Sometimes it's really hard to do these things when you don't have the right energy levels. But actually find the things that are working for you, and maybe it's face to face, maybe it's online, but don't feel like you've got to do all of those things all together all at once, right? Take it easy, embrace the ride, embrace the journey.
Yeah, it's obviously as like you build, especially because relationships take time to build, and you need to continue to nourish them. So it's not, it's pointless to just like meet 10,000 people if you're, first of all, if they don't mean anything, and then also in a way, like professionally speaking, or like they're not adding anything, or you're not adding anything to their lives either, which I think is an important element of it. And if you're not going to be able to nurture that community, because I like to think, as I've been like an entrepreneur for most of my life, so I like to think of networking as finding the work colleagues you like to have if you
I
work
love that.
company, because you're like, maybe you're gonna sometimes have a chat with someone from HR, and sometimes you'll be talking to someone from the marketing, and then like I really believe that you can build a community that supports you, that you can support as well in return, and that's more about quality than quantity. So I think, yeah, start small and be consistent. I think in general consistency is the key to most things. Like I um, don't think a lot of people ask me like, how do you stay motivated, and I think that is a pointless thing. Like no one is motivated 100% of the time. I mean, no one that I know. And I think just put enough like steps that you can actually do every day, so that you can achieve your results in the grand scheme of things. And I think networking and building communities is very similar in that way. Like
Yeah, I was about to say, I would agree with that.
yeah, like I used to work in the music industry, right? And so we had a band that was like an emerging band, and we had very small group of like very fervent fans. And so the goal was to expand on them a little bit at a time, and then one concert is 100 people, maybe the next one will be 200 people, and then maybe like then a year on, and you're like doing a concert for 600 people, and then you get your first tour, and then you go outside of the city, and then you do again smaller concerts, and you build, like there is no way, like overnight success takes years to build. And I think that's the same with relationships. You don't jump straight into perfect relationships all at once, because again, networking is a two-way street. Like you want to be able to give something back to the people you're talking to, just like you would with a friend, right? This is exactly it. No one talks like a monologue the whole time, right? Like even online, that would be weird. So whenever you are actually messaging someone online, I always tell people to read it out loud before sending anything. Like that doesn't even sound like something you would say. Because my personal pet peeve is when someone tells me that, like they send me a message and they don't know me, and they're like, "Oh, I would like to pick your brains." And I don't know about you, but nothing sounds more terrifying than my brain being wide open and someone picking at it. It always makes me itch. This image makes me itch. It's like, why would anyone do that to anyone else? Like that sounds horrible. Like it's so rare when someone comes to you and be like, "Hey, Anne, how you doing? I'd love to add you to my network." No one says that. That's
I know.
like, just say it in a way that makes sense to you, because then when you actually are in real life situation, the words will come out easier, and they will actually sound like you, because again, people want to connect with you, not with a consultant, a producer, an event planner. Like they want to connect with Isabel, the planner, or like the coach. Like you don't want to. So I think that's to keep in mind.
Yeah, I think that's a great advice. So whatever message you're sending next, just read it out loud. Anyone who's thinking about that, I think it's a good advice. Again, So many things. I would say, from just to follow back on what you were talking about, the whole piece around networking and also community building, I definitely see the similarities in those two. And I would say, for anyone who is like, oh, I hate networking, just don't think about it about networking. Like you said, it's about community building, it's about finding your tribe, it's about getting the support that you might not need because you're self-employed, or because in the current job that you are in, you just don't have that mentorship or those relationship or those colleagues that you feel like you can actually bounce ideas off. Hopefully bounce ideas off is better than pick your brain, but you tell me if you don't like bounce ideas off.
No, for sure. Yeah, yeah.
Now I'm picturing ideas in a trampoline that are being just bounced out of people. Anyway, that's my brain going into a side tangent. The one thing that I also was keen to dive is, personally speaking, and I've seen that with my clients, networking, if I just call it this way, but we know it can take different shapes and form, also comes with a form of vulnerability. You putting yourself out there, whether it's online because you're sending that message, not saying you should pick your brain, but whether it's face to face, also like being out there and just being able to say hello to people. So what are your tips, or what's your experience around navigating that whole like vulnerability, getting myself out there that goes with networking?
Yeah, again, I think practicing makes it easier.
Mhm.
I would say that you don't have to do it alone. It's very important.
Hmm. Yeah,
So
that's a good one.
if you're going to an event for the first time, I would say see if anyone else is coming with you. Share online that you're thinking about going. If anyone else is going, you can arrive together. You can, take a look. It's a lot easier usually to approach people as a duo or as a trio than on your own. And my favorite tip when it comes to networking is always to flip it like in your head. So if you are in an event and you feel the urge to get your phone because you're really scared of talking to someone, just try to find someone else in the room that looks like as scared as you are or is already knee deep in their like phone like this. There is the chances of someone else feeling like a fish out of water is usually 100%. So go and flip your brain and be like, okay, how can I support this person? Instead of thinking about yourself, go and think about how you can support them. And then yeah, like that makes it a
That's
lot
awesome.
easier when you stop thinking about your security, just try to think about someone else and like be like, okay, I can help this person and just go chat. Say hi. Are you also feeling like a fish out of water? Are you here alone? Do you want to go grab a drink? Have you seen anything good yet? Like depending, it could be anything. It doesn't have to be perfect, just need to start. And I think that's it. But yeah, definitely don't think about always doing it alone. Even online, you can ask someone to introduce you first, like I think remember to ask for support since the get go, and it could be your friends, your family. Someone else can just come
Yeah.
with you. Like it doesn't need to be all professional, perfect all the time. Yeah, so I think that's definitely something that I would tell. And if anyone is really worried about receiving a no, like no, I can't help you, or no, I'm not interested, I always try to tell them that like a no is always feedback. It's something you can take from. If someone never answers or never replies, it's a lot worse because you don't actually know what to do
True.
from it. And if you hate hearing no, just go to your local coffee shop. Maybe not the one you go all the time, but go to a coffee shop and order, I don't know, a pizza. Like, hey, do you serve milk? And
That's a great tip.
the person's gonna just say no, and you'll be like, okay, I didn't crumble, I'll be fine. Like you survive. It's not, yeah, it's not always on you. And again, I think always the flipping the script in your head is really important to remember
Mm.
that you're always talking to another person on the other side. So like, yeah, like you talking to me, like if I hadn't told you, like you're like, okay, I'm struggling because I'm COVID, because I'm this, like you don't ever know what someone else is going through on the other side. Doesn't matter like how perfect their profile might look. So yeah, just always have in mind like how can I support this person, or like that's just another person, going through all the other pressures in life. So maybe they didn't answer for a reason, or maybe they said, no, I can help you for a reason as well. So it's not all on you. It's not like a judgment on your value. And, I think that is always hard. Being vulnerable is hard, but it does get better the more we do it. Still hurts if someone says no and rejects you, but you get better at adjusting it and framing it as feedback, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. I love that. It's so valuable. It's so easy to get stuck in your own head, right? For everything in life, but especially like we said with networking, and so easy to think about like how we feeling, and like you said, the whole flipping on its head. Love that. I think it's a valuable tips and tools for anyone who's listening in. Take some tips and see how you can practice. Also, for anyone who doesn't like the nose, I've never thought about ordering a pizza at a coffee shop. So my personal takeaway on that, thank you very much. And yeah, it's a very good one. And when it comes to this time that we've got together, let me check. We just have 5 minutes left. Okay, this really goes quickly. It's insane. Feel free, anyone who's listening in, to drop any questions that you have that we can pick up. But in those 5 minutes remaining, if I were to pick your brain, no, I'm joking. If I were to ask you, what are your top tips to networking? It could be either in terms of doing things, and you already shared a lot of things, or it could be in terms of specific events or form of networking that you have in mind. Anything top of your head that you'd like to share to anyone who is looking to, do a little bit more in networking, what would you say to them?
I think my number one tip, especially in the time we're living now, is to think to yourself, what is one thing I can offer someone today, and do that.
Nice.
So, like, if I'm a designer, can I offer to review a portfolio from true students? Or can I offer to support a charity to help them with their new branding? Or I know everything there is to know about this particular software. Why don't I share this with someone? Or, you can be the source of information and support to someone else. I think that works in many ways. One,
Mm,
I do believe that community and collaboration is the way forward to like
mm,
successful and organic networking that's not that intense. So first of all, you're actually helping someone or providing a service to your community that will bring people to talk to you automatically in a very nice way. And then it will reinforce your strengths, the things you're good at, put you in a position where you are seen as a sort of, leader or a specialist in something that you want to be seen as very naturally without having to make a massive effort. And yeah, I think it's a really nice way to start conversation because you're actually doing your part in supporting the community, and it just creates a very organic movement from it. And we all need a bit of help these days, and I think it's just a really nice way to do any form of skill swap or sharing what you know. You never know who's listening, and I think sharing our stories, we are not, and I'm not saying you have to like come and talk to us about like you were born in this year, and then like that's not it. But sharing your stories and your narratives and your insights, you never know how that will impact someone else who might be going through the same thing. And also it does help because you give someone else the sort of space to understand that their story is also valid and what you're going through is also valid. So I think that's the best way to do it, because you'll be doing it, you like reinforcing your strengths, you're helping someone else, and then the conversation will just flow naturally from it. You're just gonna meet
yeah.
people because of it, and then things can start from there. There's like no pressure. And yeah, we're all going through a lot in the past few years, so I think, yeah, thinking about your community is a very nice way to get your mind
Mm,
off from you and actually develop really nice relationships in a supportive way. And I think it will help anyone who's like terrified of networking, because
yeah.
that they have that, and they'll be like, oh, okay, that was actually nice. And then you can start the conversation. And then next time you see someone else doing it, you're like, oh, okay, I can actually ask for that. So that's
Yeah.
usually my best strategy for
And
everyone.
it's a great one. Actually, it sort of lines up with one thing that Laura shared on the questions. Not sure if you can see it, by the way, but she's
Mm,
basically saying that she's definitely comfortable when it comes to like informal exchange, but where she's struggling is when or how asking the right advice like at the right time with a connection that you started to network with. I think some of the tips that you shared, when it comes to seeing it as a journey in the sense of like connections and building meaningful connections takes time. I think it's one of those. But also from the last point that you shared, for you, Laura, thinking about what is it that you can offer to that person that might be of interest, that can start the conversation, and then for you to actually then follow up with the questions that you also wanted to ask. I think it's a great tip that you shared, Isabel.
And I was just gonna say before we run totally out of time is that usually people love talking about themselves and getting and giving advice. So if you just, ask interesting questions and just are actually interested in hearing from this person and want them to talk about themselves, usually you will get a response. Might not be the response you want or not be the longest response, but usually people do want to give advice. The strategy there needs to be very clear about what is it that you're asking. I think people usually confuse asking things directly as being pushy, and they're not the same thing. If someone just asks me a very clear question, I'm more than happy to respond, because like, well, this takes 10 seconds out of my day to respond to this person, as opposed to reading a whole paragraph that ends with "I would love to pick your brains," and you're like, but about what do you want with me? That's a lot more stressful for the person receiving the message, so just asking like, oh, I would love to hear more about this or that, and then it's a lot easier to respond, basically. And yeah, people do like to give advice, so I would always use that strategy if you're looking to continue a connection.
Amazing. Great way to finish. Thank you so much for your time. It was a pleasure to have you, Isabelle. Thank you, everyone who's been watching this.
Thank you so much for inviting me. And yeah, I'll catch you next time on the next one.
That sounds good. Bye, everyone.
Bye.